So the pre-release for Gatecrash has come and gone. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I know I did. I went to several events that were really under one big kind of tentpole event. It's a pre-release weekend where I go. And it's really 6 events that culminate in an overall champion being crowned after the whole thing is said and done. I sadly wound up in 3rd place by a very slim margin of 1 game. But overall, I had a really enjoyable time, and I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves too. It came to my attention while I was playing, though, that I wasn't very insightful when I gave my long, several-hour preview of the set when it comes to a couple of cards in it. So I just want to go over a couple of cards that I was wrong about and kind of talk to you about them here. The first one is going to be Madcap Skills. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about this card, but this card ruined me in a match. I had 1 creature out. My opponent had 2 creatures out. It was mid-game, maybe about turn 6. I think he had 6 lands out. That's how he was able to do this. He double Madcap Skills, 1 on each creature, and then Boros Charmed for the double strike. It just decimated me right there. That was the end of the game, if you want to look at it that way. That's how it would be the game that put me behind. But right there, I discounted this card. I knew that it was a beater, but I didn't know it would be as prevalent as it was. I felt like I felt like everybody had Madcap Skills. Like, if you were opening a pack and there was going to be a red card in there, it was going to be Madcap Skills. I don't know if everybody felt that way or everybody got that, but I saw Madcap Skills everywhere. It was nuts. The second card that I was wrong about, these aren't in any particular order, but the second card I was wrong about was Pitfight. Now, I bemoaned Pitfight a little bit because I am still kind of bored with it. I'm bored with the target creature fights another target creature thing. Like, I'm over it. It's been released every single time. Guild Feud did it last time, did it really poorly last time. M13 did it. It came out with, of course, Prey Upon. But the thing about, let's not even talk about Guild Feud because that's terrible, but let's talk about Prey Upon. And the thing that I did not realize even when I was reading the card to you guys, and I am really bad about this, oftentimes I will gloss over if a card is an instant or a sorcery, especially if I just assume it's a sorcery. I just assumed, since we'd already seen this in Prey Upon, that it was sorcery speed for some reason. I just didn't even really look at it. And I am going to back up what I said a little bit. I am done with this kind of mechanic. And, you know, Domri Raid has the same thing. His Neg 2 is the same damn thing. It's not real removal. It's green removal, that's for sure. But, I mean, it feels very green. I will put it that way. And now that they printed it, they can't exactly take it away. You know what I mean? Because now we need that sort of green removal from time to time, especially in Limited. But I was super wrong about this. 1 mana for the ability to cast this at instant speed is fantastic. I'm sure I don't need to tell you guys that. If I had noticed that this was an instant at the time of my review, I would have sung its praises. Because instant speed removal, especially in green or in an aggro pile like that, fantastic. Great. Great to have. Now we're going to talk about Lane Denizen. This card kind of surprised me because at a 4-drop, I didn't expect it to go off as often as it did. Overall, I was a little mistaken with the set, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the way that some of the games ran, especially the games that were against the Simics and against some of the other green, not really so much Gruul. Wasn't as useful in Gruul, I don't think. Or at least in, you know, the 6 events I played, you know, the 25 games that I played over the weekend, I didn't really see too much of it being useful in Gruul, but it is a beater. I mean, that ability to just give anybody +1/+1 is pretty nice, and it also causes this conflict in your opponent because there isn't an overwhelming amount of removal spells. There's a good amount of removal, and I do enjoy that about this set. Oh, but there's not enough that you can use it on 2 creatures. You know what I mean? There's not removal where you can be like, oh, it's fine, I can kill this thing and kill what it made big. You kind of have to make a choice, and I really like this card, actually, because it puts your opponent in that kind of high-pressure situation. And I didn't really see that happening at first. Next card's going to be Shadow Slice. I don't like this in Standard. I guess we can finally talk about Standard a little bit. I don't like it for Standard, but I love this in Limited. This is awesome. You're more often than not going to get 9 damage off this. I don't think I ever played it and didn't get 9 damage off of it. In the way that I split up my weekend is I played every single guild at least once, which I really regretted because my stint with the Boros was actually better than I expected it to be. We'll talk about that in a minute. But my stint with Gruul was excruciating. And I actually took 2 losses there, which is, in a 4-game event, is a little unusual for me. So I ended up finishing with a break-even record, which was sad times as far as I was concerned. So I was not in love with the way Gruul handled for me. But when I played Dimir, I just barely squeaked out with a winning record. And when I started winning games, I think I lost my first game, and then I put Shadow Slice in, and Shadow Slice started winning me games. I don't know why, but there were a ton of unblockable creatures. There's a ton in the format. You hit them for 3, you put it on a creature, you hit them for an additional 3 that turn. Not to mention the fact that you can put this on something, and then they have to think about bad blocks. I mean, they have to kind of be like, do I let this what used to be little creature through and then take 3 damage from it anyway, or do I block the big creature that's going to bash me for 6 in the first place? So I really like that card because, again, it creates that conflict in your opponent where they have to decide what to do next, and neither outcome is particularly favorable for them. Final card that I want to talk about, and I want to bitch about this card a little bit, to be honest with you, is the Copa Guildmage, because this thing is a cheap bitch. Like, I'm not happy with this card. I was in Two-Headed Giant, and I came up with the extremely cheap strategy, I hope some of you saw it out there, of having my buddy play Orzhov, because it pings your opponent team twice, because they each count as an opponent. So for each time you cast a card with that extra little stipulation, with the extort stipulation on it, they're losing 2 life, you're gaining 2 life. And at a certain point, it just becomes overwhelming. I think at max, we did 8 damage to our opponents in one spell, with one spell casting, and it was awesome. While I ran what ended up being my favorite guild, the Simic. So overall, we were doing very well until we came up against the exact same strategy, the Stall Simic, flush the life total opponent strategy in the same guilds, except that they had the Copa Guildmage, and my problem with this card is that the second ability stacks. We had them down. It wasn't even stalemate. They were just clinging to life. We were knocking them down quite a bit each turn, but at a certain point, they had 2 bigger creatures out. So we started stalemating, and then the mana accumulated on their side where they could just cast the Copa Guildmage's abilities, use their abilities, activate them, over and over again multiple times. And it became a real beater, and it's not particularly fun to have a swing in the battle like that. And I know this is something that even the developers of Magic talk about if you read or you listen to, podcasts or blogs or anything like that. They don't like cards that swing that violently, so I am really surprised that this is out there and it stacks, and it's written in such a manner that it stacks, because we went from 46 life to them at 8 in one turn because it pinged us both. We took, 26 damage? Yeah, it was 26 damage, and they gained 18 life or whatever just from that alone. So it was, that was it. That was pretty much all she wrote, because then it was the next hit we were going to die. Now, I held them off for 4 full turns after that, just from the tricks that Simic had, which is one of the things I want to talk about in my favorite guild in a minute. But it was really kind of disheartening. It was the only loss that my Two-Headed Giant team got, but it was a really good match. I do want to stress that. My opponents played fantastically, but it really was this one card that won it for them. it's just kind of a heartbreaker when that happens to you. But you know, I will once again state that they played great. I mean, my friend and I played to the very best of our ability, and we lost to the best. And that's really the best thing that you can hope for in a loss, is that you lose to the best players you can lose to. And they were definitely the best team there. Their record was 3-0-1, I believe, and they made us go 3-1. So it was just, it was an enjoyable match because they played so well, and it really pushed us to play better, but it was also kind of frustrating. So overall, I want to talk about what I was wrong about in the set as a whole. The speed of the set, I think I marginalized a little bit. I said that we'd be seeing a lot of turn 11s. That was a bull-faced lie to you, and I apologize for that. There's a much faster format. I think it was the same speed as RTR, but more structured. I didn't feel like there was many blowout cards, because in RTR you had Dynacharge, you had there's just a number of cards where when they got played against you, you just had this feeling of like, oh, this card again, I lost to Dynacharge again, and I don't feel like that happened in this set. So I feel like it kept the speed of RTR, but with a lot more structure. And I thought that the structure would get in the way of the speed, but a lot of these matches were over in 20 minutes. Or, not matches, a lot of these games were over in 20 minutes. And you know, you just kind of chilled, or what have you, while you waited for everything else to wrap up. But it was a very fast set. I saw a lot of turn 6, a lot of turn 7 wins. They were kind of pushing it. I saw turn 4. I pulled off an awesome turn 4 win with the double strike key rune, the Boros key rune, and Gruul cards. I had Boros key rune and one of the Gruul blood rushes. I think the trample one for 2. And something else, just the way that it happened, they didn't block the double striker even at all, because it was just the 2 damage down there. And just from the way that they'd taken damage up to that, and the way that attacks were on the board right then, they lost to that key rune. I love that key rune. Double strike on anything is amazing, and I love that. There are a lot of cards that I really like about the set, and we'll talk about that in part 2 of this video.